Yep. Ah, right. Sorry for the delay. Where were we? So I was on my way to a place called Solomon Island. Sonic told me to use Agartha to get there. Agartha is... well, I mean, you've been there. How would you describe it? The World Tree? Yggdrasil? The Thousand Fingers? I mean, it's gone by a bunch of names. How exactly do you describe to someone who thinks the Earth is solid that it's actually hollow? Honestly, up to this point, you could explain away the things that I've said as a bad trip, hallucinations, a bunch of people pretending to play Crusader. Agartha is truly the first otherworldly thing I ever saw. Like a lot of people, the moment that I arrived, I got completely lost. I couldn't tell which direction I had come from, which direction I needed to go. So I wandered. Agartha has this weird, dreamlike quality to it. I'm sure I sat there for hours. There's something captivating about it all. The long pathways that lead nowhere and everywhere. The silent golems that slowly patrol and stand guard. The swirling pools of energy that look truly menacing, but I honestly don't know anything about them still. I do remember one distinct moment, though, that I can tell you about. Like I said, I think it had been hours. And I found myself hopelessly lost. Everything looked the same. Something in the back of my mind told me to step to the edge. It was very peaceful. I remember that. And then I jumped. Fell for 30 seconds. 2 minutes, 2 hours. And then landed on solid ground again. Exactly where I needed to be. Somehow, I had found the station master.
Hello? Yes? Now this is the Hollow Earth, Agartha. I do hope you're not here for the local service. It's running somewhat tardy. And by my watch, it's 100 years overdue at 1/4 the hour. Judging from the cut of you, you're more of a world traveller. Well, you've come to the right place. This underground realm, like the great British rail system, is the very model of efficiency. Agartha's thoroughfares sprout from the Tree of Life and connect back to the surface. Distance and time bend in here. Why, you can cross the globe in a brisk walk. Of course, it's perfectly safe. No one's entirely sure how it works. Quite bedeviled, the science boffins, but I'm assured they have their top men on it. Top men. Now you'll need one of these. Mind your fingers. Thank you. Fascinating devices. Fortunately, there's still enough to hand out like sweets. Consider it your anchor to the Hollow Earth. It can return you here in a flash, proverbially and quite literally. Well then, onwards to the New England coast, what?
His explanation of the World Tree was about as absurd as anybody else's, I suppose. But it did point me in the right direction. Somehow he knew exactly where I needed to go. And he explained to me that I could travel through Agartha using these pools of energy to magically whisk myself away from one point to another. And somehow the tree would know exactly where I needed to be. Just like the station manager. Before too long, I found myself face to face with a portal leading directly to Solomon Island and the town of Kingsmouth. stepping through was a shock to my system. At that point, Agartha felt warm and soft and inviting, and Kingsmouth felt cold and dark. The mist was everywhere, and there was a black haze over the whole city. I wandered down the street toward what I assumed to be the city lights, and before too long I ran into someone.
Oh, don't worry, kid. You haven't gone back in time. I just happen to be the last of the cowboys. Got your southern welcome right here. Mesquite beans, Texas style. Good ought to face evil on a full stomach. Name's Boone. I'm a troubleshooter. You and I need to have a powwow before you continue your little crusade. You Templars may be taking the high road, but just watch you don't get saddle rash from the high horse, okay? Sure, you can be divided in purpose, but we gotta stand united against darkness. This ain't my first rodeo. I know we're gonna need all the unity we can get. Don't mean to say you stepped into hell, but when the wind blows west, you can just about smell the brimstone. All we know is death and fog came from the sea, or someone brought it back with them. If I was a gambling man, I'd put money on that someone still being around. Bunch of survivors holed up in Kingsmouth town. Follow that main road and the sound of gunfire, you'll come to the sheriff's office. Kid, whatever your reasons for being here, you find out what those people died for, and you bring a reckoning. This forest crawls. Gets my fingers itching for two matters. One, the other, figuring out a way to keep them down. It ain't right the way the dead walk the earth. They deserve their 6 feet, same as everyone else. I've sworn to keeping guard here, and you've got places to be, but nothing's stopping you from culling the herd as you go. Hell, figure out what makes them tick and how to make that ticking stop, and I'll buy you a beer at the apocalypse. So go on, kid. Saddle up. The end of the world waits for no man.
And I swear to God, his name was actually Jack Boone. A true character if I had ever seen one. Boone believed that something had called up the mists and the darkness from the water, and that when it came ashore, it destroyed everything that the town had been, replacing it with death and destruction. You know, it's actually quite hard to keep a straight face when someone tells you that zombies are real. But sure enough, the citizens of that town, they were gone, replaced with something otherworldly. Boone said we had stepped into hell. I think he was right. I did what I had to do, putting the skills that Sonak taught me to use. I didn't exactly enjoy the task, but there was something oddly satisfying about the whole thing. Eventually I reached the town, or what was left of it. The citizens had set up perimeter walls and defenses and scouts to shoot down incoming zombies. That's a weird thing to say. The defenses were located mainly around the police precinct, and inside the sheriff was giving orders and setting up supplies and making sure people felt safe.
Heck if I know where you folks keep coming from, but anyone who walks through that door alive pretty much gets my amnesty. Something in your past colors you sourly to a badge, I'd ask you to call it quits in return. We agreeable? Well then, I'm Sheriff Bannerman, and this down-home little state of emergency is what's left of my jurisdiction. Sure, we tried to hold as much of the town as we could at first. More out of nostalgia than any civil defense plan. I won't tell you Kingsmouth was a slice of heaven in a snow globe, but it was ours. Now it ain't. There was always something running under in this town. Maybe what's spilled out now. If that's how it works, I couldn't say hand on heart we didn't have it coming. But that fog, and the things in it, they didn't pick and choose when they came in. Most folks didn't stand a chance. Now, I can see you're armed. I won't kick up any fuss about that. Straight truth is, you'll need to be. Just don't go thinking that means you're deputized as such. Heaven knows if there was ever a time and a place for the right to bear 'em, you're looking at it. Henry has his word of God, that Roger woman has her crystal ball, and Norma out on the point's got a 12 gauge. My money's on Norma.
So as the fog and mist rolled in, the city fell, and they pulled back to the precinct. They were in a pretty sorry state. For some reason they looked to me to pick them up, dust them off, make sure they survived. The sheriff had said others had come before me, and sure enough she was right. I met one in town. I forget his name now, but he was very confident. I never saw him again after that. And that's how I arrived in Kingsmouth. Dozens of unanswered questions lay before me, and a bunch of scared, lonely, tired survivors lay behind. I knew it was on me to keep them going. If they were going to survive, they would need help.